Well, we aren't done talking about politics and sports. Hey, everybody, I'm Chad Hasty, host of the Chad Hasty Show, which airs weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk, 95.1 FM and 790 a.m. KFYO. Well, the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, Gregg Popovich, who is not a big fan of Donald Trump at all, decided to go off at Media Day on the president and also race relations in the United States. Popovich, I'll start off with one of his quotes, or a big part of his quotes, when talking about race relations in America. Popovich going off on the issue of white privilege. Here's what he had to say. Now, I'm taking this from Twitter here, in Tim Cato on Twitter. Obviously, race is the elephant in the room, and we all understand that. Unless it's talked about constantly, it's not going to get better. Quote, they're talking about that again. They pulled the race card again. Why do we have to talk about that? Popovich continued, well, because it's uncomfortable. There has to be an uncomfortable element in the discourse for anything to change, whether it's the LGBT movement or women's suffrage. Race, it doesn't matter. People have to be made to feel uncomfortable, and especially white people, because we're comfortable. We have no clue what being born white means. And if you read some of the recent literature, you realize there really is no such thing as whiteness. We kind of made it up. What? Anyway, that's not my original thought, but it's true, Popovich says, which, again, that's an opinion. I don't know if that's actually true, that whiteness isn't real. I don't know. It's hard to sit down and decide that, yes, it's like you're at the 50-meter mark in a 100-meter dash. You've kind of got a lead. Yes, because you were born white. So everyone born white, according to Gregg Popovich, is, I guess, ahead in life, which would maybe surprise some white people who were born into poverty, and they are still involved in that cycle of poverty. But I digress. Popovich continued, you have an advantage that you're systematically, culturally, psychologically rare, and they have been built up and cemented for hundreds of years, but many people can't look at it that way because it's too difficult. It can't be something that's on their plate on a daily basis. People want to hold their position. People want their status quo. People don't want to give that up. Until it's given up, it's not going to be fixed. Again, I'm not sure completely what the last line of that means about giving up your whiteness or whatever. I'm not quite sure. But Gregg Popovich going off. Now, to be completely fair, I really don't care what Gregg Popovich says about white privilege and white culture and all of that. If he wants to talk about it, that's his God-given right. I've got no problem with that at all. What I do have a problem with is when Gregg Popovich, when talking about Richard Petty, a NASCAR owner, talking about how he would, pay for Greyhound tickets for those who decided to protest during the national anthem, that he would send them away to a different country, that you should go away to a different country. Gregg Popovich, the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, said that the United States is an embarrassment. Now, this was all going along with a line where Popovich was talking about how Richard Petty was being enabled, and that a lot of people were being enabled, presumably by President Trump. And Popovich said that our nation is an embarrassment, or the quote is, our country is an embarrassment to the world. Now, this is where I have a problem with Gregg Popovich. Our country is not an embarrassment to the world, sir. Venezuela is an embarrassment to the world. Cuba is an embarrassment to the world. North Korea is an embarrassment to the world. Iran, an embarrassment to the world. I would say that China can be an embarrassment to the world. Have you checked out their human rights record lately? Saudi Arabia, an embarrassment to the world. Shall I go on about the embarrassments of the world? There are people dying to get to the United States, Gregg Popovich. People don't die to get into a country that is an embarrassment to the rest of the world. Just because you don't like the President of the United States and you embrace Colin Kaepernick and those who take a knee during the protest doesn't mean that this nation is an embarrassment to the world. I don't agree with everything President Trump says or does. I don't like that President Trump called for people to be fired. I don't like that at all. But does that mean that this is a country that is an embarrassment to the world? Absolutely not, sir. This nation is a great nation that, yes, has its flaws and will forever have its flaws. We are not a perfect nation, but we can build towards that. Let me say this, Gregg Popovich. I know you agree with Colin Kaepernick, but you're in the minority in the United States. Most NFL fans do not agree with Colin Kaepernick and do not agree with the NFL players who took a knee during the national anthem. Most people, like myself, have no problem with NFL players protesting on their own time or whenever they want. Just not during the national anthem. There's a time and place for everything, and a time and place to protest what you think are the injustices of the world. For Popovich, I know he hates Donald Trump. I know he hates conservatism. I know he hates the fact that that there are people who are calling out these protesters, but that doesn't mean we're an embarrassment of the world. We are the greatest nation in the world. Yes, with our flaws, but if we were an embarrassment to this world, people wouldn't die to get here. People from South America and from the East wouldn't attempt to get here and risk their lives to get here. We're dealing with illegal immigration. We wouldn't have a problem with illegal immigration if we were an embarrassment to the world. An embarrassment to the world, Gregg Popovich? I don't think so. You're an embarrassment for those comments, and you should be embarrassed by those comments. For your racial comments, for your white privilege comments, I don't really care. I don't really care what you have to say on that. I'm not going to get into a debate on those issues. But when it comes to our nation being an embarrassment, I don't think so. Tune in to the Chad Hasty Show weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time. News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 a.m. KFYO. Have a great day. Follow me on Twitter, Chad Hasty Radio.